Hello world, my name is John and this is part 3 of my life story. So in the last recording I started uh, finally getting into that Hurricane Mathew flooding story, so let me just follow up on that. So after I realized I can't really help it and I can't really do anything about that water, uh, my neighbor took me back to my truck and we jump started it and brought it back to my house, and I hooked it up to a charger to the generator so I can charge it up and drive home. And then in the meantime I was trying to get my clothes dry, and I was running naked around the house, around the construction site. I was running naked, and then the neighbor came and brought his daughter with him and his wife, and I was like, "Excuse me, I have to put something on." That was a funny moment. And then that evening, um, I jumped in my truck and drove back home, but I couldn't get home because all the rivers and creeks were swollen, and all the bridges were flooded, and I just couldn't get across to my house. So I have to like keep driving around town and find a route to my house. So after I finally found it, I came back and I couldn't even take a shower because the water didn't run. The power was off, and all I needed was just to get warm, So I couldn't even get a shower, and so I just lie down, got some food, and trying to get warm. I got everything on videos and photos, but I don't have any of that with me here in Czechia. Uh, I have everything locked up in a storage unit back in United States, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So if I ever get my hands on it, I'll put it in the videos and I'll put it online to support my story. Uh, but right now I'm just gonna be recording these because I got absolutely nothing else to do. So the next couple of days I spent cleaning under the house. The water, the flood receded like the very next day, so I could start cleaning under the house, all the mud, and there were also like lobsters, like little lobsters or crabs or whatever. So I had to throw those out. So I started cleaning all the mud and pulling the insulation, the wet, the soaked ducts out, and I think it took me like a day and a half to clean it up. And because I was already so tired from moving the stuff during the flood, in the morning I got a coffee, and then I got another coffee, and then the next day I got another coffee, and suddenly I started becoming so weak and tired, and I don't know what happened to me. My body just shut down. I was in so much pain and I couldn't move, and I was just exhausted, and basically I thought I'm gonna die. And I originally thought that I'm getting sick from that cold. Because I was so cold before, and I thought I'm just gonna get sick, but I didn't get sick. I didn't get no cough, you know. But then at night I started feeling so bad. I had um, you know, my heart started beating fast, and you know, I think I started having those panic attacks again, and you know, I had a tinnitus in my ears, and my head was like gonna blow up, and I ended up in the hospital for, I guess, exhaustion or whatever. I was so exhausted, so I decided to go to hospital, and I actually went to hospital a couple times because of that. I couldn't sleep at night at all. I had panic attacks. I had cold sweats, and my heart was just racing, and I was so exhausted, and I still had to work on that house. I started, you know, laying the hardwood floor down, and man, I will never forget the 3 weeks I was laying down the hardwood floors because I was so tired. I was in so much pain, and I had to be, you know, kneeling down all the time, and I had to carry around those heavy bundles of hardwood planks, and I think that uh, doing the hardwood floors those 3 weeks after the storm literally finished me, because after that I was basically just dead person walking around, and I wasn't able to do more. I wasn't able to work more than like 4 hours a day, and I couldn't get out the bed. I was like starting, instead of, you know, I usually was starting like eight o'clock in the morning, but after that I couldn't start like earlier than 11, and I was back home like at 3. So I couldn't work like longer than 4 hours a day, and I was also working so slow, and the progress, I wasn't making any progress, and I was in hospital a couple times. I felt so bad. They put me on EKG, and they did a nuclear test on my heart, and you know, I had some blood work done, and you know, my blood pressure and all that, but everything came negative. I was actually in hospital overnight on one occasion. They kept me there for observation, and they had me hooked up on the EKG for 2 days straight while I was laying there, and they wouldn't. I told them, let me sleep. I need to, you know, get some sleep. That's all I need, because I didn't sleep much. I couldn't sleep at night at all, and I still had to work at the house. And all I need is to get some sleep, and they wouldn't let me sleep. I mean, like every hour or two, somebody came in my room and checking on me, and they wouldn't let me sleep. So I didn't get any sleep in the hospital either. They were just monitoring my heart, and I did a couple of stress tests, and they told me there's nothing wrong with me, but I knew there's something wrong with me because my heart was skipping. You know, I had like irregular heartbeat. I had a heart arrhythmia, but they the doctors wouldn't notice it on the graph on the EKG. So I had to show them, like look, what is this? Look, it looks normal, and then suddenly it goes down and and that's when my heart like skips a beat, or it beats like 3 times. Like, what is that? And they told me that that's a PVC, premature ventricular contraction, right? So I finally got some diagnosis, like what's that heart skipping? What is that? So it's a PVC, and it might be caused by a stress or a coffee or exhaustion or whatever. They told me it's nothing serious, but I've had this going on first time in my life. I noticed that when I was like 21 years old, and my heart was skipping. And my first stress test ever I had done was when I was 21. Actually, back here where I'm at right now in Czechia, in a city where I was born in Havířov. And at that time when I was 21 and had that stress test done, of course they didn't find anything wrong with me. I was a strong guy. I mean, I was working out and I was, pumped. And so I basically I killed that stress test machine. They told me enough, get off of it. you know I think it was a bike. I think it was a bike. So this time in Fayetteville, it was a treadmill, and I was like 20 minutes on it. I was supposed to be like, I think like 7 minutes, or I don't know. And I told them, let me do more. So I was like 20 minutes on it, and nothing was happening except that PVC that they didn't notice, and I had to show them. So after 21 years having this problem, I finally knew what this heart skipping is. So it's a PVC. Anyway, they didn't give me any diagnosis, so I kept working at the house few hours a day, and I was feeling like really bad. I was feeling like so exhausted every day. My legs were weak, and I had days when I couldn't even go to the house. I would like take a 3 or 4 days off at a time, and I would just be like walking around the parks, and I was taking walks, and and even if I drove to the house and I opened the garage and I smelled the mold in the garage, I mean, I couldn't even go in, and I just got back in the truck and just drove back home. Yeah, man, it was difficult. I didn't at that time. I didn't think I'm ever gonna finish that house, because I was so exhausted. I was mentally and physically exhausted, and I just couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't work. I didn't have any strength. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but that's how I felt, and I just couldn't sleep at night at all. And man, I was getting some sleeping pills, and I was trying to drink some Jägermeister to help me fall asleep, and this was going on for months until I ran out of money again. Okay, so until I spent all the money from when I sold my van, right? I sold it for $21,000, but only about $8,000 I put in the house, and the rest of it I spent on my expenses, like food and gas and insurance and bills and sleeping pills, alcohol, truck repairs, and all the other complications and shit. So I only put like $8,000 in the house, and the rest of it I spent on my life. And I ended up being flat broke again, and I didn't know what to do. So I reached out to my mother if she lent me some money, or if there could be some kind of solution. I also went to the bank, see if I can get a loan on my house, but I couldn't get any loan from the bank because I don't even have a social security number, because I've been living in states illegally. That's what I mentioned in my first video. So I'm doing all this stuff and house flipping and working and real estate investing while I'm living illegally in the United States. So this is adventure of its own. you know. So with my mother, we couldn't find a solution, and she gave me this advice. If you don't have money for food, she wouldn't even loan me like $20 for food. I mean, I didn't have any money. I was just like flat broke, and she told me, go where all the homeless people go, to get food. So that's what I did. I found Salvation Army hotspot, and I went there to get a box of crap. Most of the food was like cookies and candy bars, and some expired cans, and the only thing that I could really eat out of it was a box of cereal and a bag of frozen chicken thighs. The rest of it was either expired, or I don't even eat sweets. I don't eat candy. So I pulled all the candy out of the box, and so I don't have, so it's not too heavy for me to carry it back home. And because I didn't even have money for gas to drive there, so I actually had to walk a couple miles to Salvation Army. And uh, and then I stole a bag of bread, and that's what I was eating for next 2 weeks. Um, just the bread and the chicken, and I was like really eating like very little, so I don't have to go to that place again. And that was actually at a time when I already sold my house again. So when I ran out of money from the van, and I couldn't find any other solution, I put my other house, my small house, on market again. And I didn't even go through real estate or MLS or anything. I just put it on Zillow for like 45 or whatever. And within like 3 days, I had multiple offers, and one of them was $40,000 from some another investor. And he told me I got cash, we can close in 2 weeks. And I don't care what the condition of the house is, because the house I was staying in also needed lots of repairs. uh, that's what I do. That's why I bought it. The house itself worth over $100,000, and I bought it for 45. So I could really make some money on that house because it was a small house. I wouldn't have to put too much money in it. I could probably make about 30 or $40,000 on it. But that never happened because I had to sell it back to another investor. And he told me we can close in 2 weeks, and I pay cash and blah blah blah. That was a lie. He didn't have his own cash. He was using one of those investing hedge fund companies online that loan money to house flippers. And instead of 2 weeks, it took 5 weeks before I got money uh, from them. So that's why I ended up going to Salvation Army to get some food, because I was waiting, another week, another week, another week. I only literally had money for food for those 2 weeks, and then I was just surviving off of a Salvation Army food. So that's the second occasion I ran out of money. And I don't really remember if I moved to a hotel or if I moved directly to the house. But I think, because usually when I'm working on the house, I decided to not be staying at the construction site, because of that dust, like what I did before when I worked on the house. I also lived there because I didn't have any extra cash for paying me a rent somewhere else. So I usually stayed at the house that I was working on, but in the future I was thinking I cannot do this anymore because that's not really comfortable, and it's possible on some kind of smaller project where there is not so much construction going on. But if I when I had but I wasn't planning doing this in the future. Okay, I was planning on having my own place or whatever. I didn't want to live at the construction site anymore. So what I decided when I when I started doing this, my next projects, I was staying at a extended stay hotel, right, at a like a value place. Okay, that's where I stayed most of the time in Fayetteville. I was staying at a value place before I bought this small house, and I don't remember if I moved back to a value place after I sold it, or if I moved directly to the house because it started being in condition that I could live there. I had bathrooms done. I had a water heater hooked up. I had a kitchen done, but I don't really remember. I would have to go through my pictures. But anyway, I sold that house, and I had $40,000, which was enough money for me to finish the house, right? So I got, like uh, last energy jump, and I told myself, now I have to finish the house finally. So I was able to do everything I wanted to do originally with the house, like install all the smart things. I turned this house actually into like a smart house. I installed smart switches that you can operate via smartphone. I put a smart garage door openers you can open from your smartphone. You can do the same with the front door lock. Uh, the water heater, you can adjust the water heater from your smartphone. I installed cameras. You can view the cameras. So I finished the house in like July of 2017, right? So because of all these problems and delays and my health issues, I'm gonna talk about my health issues more. So because of all that, I actually finished the house 12 months later than what my original projection was, than what my original plan was. So that was really difficult for me, and right now I am very happy that that I was able to finish the house and that I was able to put it on market, and that I actually signed a contract 2 weeks ago, and hopefully in another month and a half all this is gonna be over, and I'm really hoping that it's going to close and that I'm going to sell this house that I've owned for probably at the time I'm gonna close on it. It's gonna be 2.5 years on a single project, which is really miserable. I'm really miserable house flipper. This is crazy. I mean, to get stuck with one house for 2.5 years, this is like really immature hour. you know I feel like I failed, all my plans, and my my ambitious plans and my dreams, just disappeared. And right now I'm at a place where I don't even know what I'm gonna do with my life next. If this deal doesn't go through on April 2nd, I won't have money to pay for them property taxes. So I'm gonna lose this house into foreclosure, because I don't know where can I get $2,100 for them property taxes. There is no way for me. I don't know. I won't be able to make that money anywhere here. I won't be able to borrow that money. And another thing, if I don't sell it and if I don't pay for my storage next month, I'm gonna lose everything, all the content of my storage unit, my tools, my furniture, my appliances, my all my personal stuff, and most of all my hard drives, and my computer where all my pictures and videos, all my archive, the evidence, the all the evidence that I ever was in America is in the storage. And if I don't pay that storage next month, I'm gonna lose everything. So hopefully it'll go through, and I'll be able to move on with my life and move on to next projects, because I'm not going to give it up. I'm not gonna give up all that experience I've got. I've got plans, and I'm gonna talk about it in the next video. So this is part 3, and talk to you later.